Hi everyone, this is a full review of the MacBook Pro versus the MacBook Air. Now if you haven't already, press the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It's going to help out the channel here so I can create more videos for you all. And click on the subscribe button down below. That's going to help you guys know when I'm going to post additional reviews. I am doing a long-term review here of the MacBook Pro M1 chip and also the MacBook Air M1 chip. So check out the subscribe button, click it, and let's get started here. So as you can see, I have a side-by-side of the Air and the MacBook Pro. And I'm gonna go ahead and put some light here, as you can see, but the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, they are both the same screen size. They're both 13-inch. They both have the Apple M1 chip, and I've got it right here in terms of that. So you can see here with the MacBook Pro M1, 8 gigs of memory, and right here, M1, 8 gigs of memory as well. So I have used both these laptops, and we have both different colors. As you can see, we have the silver and we have the dark matte finish, which is a newer one. This is actually quite original in terms of the silver color. Apple has been producing these type of darker colors now for some time, for a few years now. So it's a nice change in departure, and I think Mac is going to be coming out with a gold color and whatnot as well for their Pro models. Now, as you can see from some of the big differences right off the bat is the thinness. The thinness for the Pro and the Air is obvious right off the bat. The Air is much thinner, and it's quite smaller. So if I do put it right next to each other, side by side, as you can see here, there are some differences. Even with the speakers are smaller. Very small items are smaller with the Air. That's obvious, okay? The weight of it, of course, is about 0.2 to 0.3 grams less for the Air, so it's a lighter weight, laptop in general. So if you do travel quite a bit, I highly recommend the Air over the Pro. But there are some big differences as well in terms of the internal specs that I'd like to kind of go over. So one of the main factors that you can see right here is the touch bar. You've got a touch bar right here. So instead of a physical key bar. So people like the touch bar, some people don't. You've got a Siri button right there. You do have a Touch ID for both laptops, which is great. It's amazing. I like it a lot. You do have the same type of mouse for both of them. But that's one big difference right there. There's not really, other than that, it is throttled more with the MacBook Pro. They both have the M1 chip, but the MacBook Pro throttles and has a greater capacity of speed over the MacBook Air, and that's due to the MacBook Pro having fans to run so the chip does not overheat. As opposed to the MacBook Air, to make it so thin and small, it doesn't have those fans. So it's throttled down. So it does go very fast, no doubt about it, but it's throttled down due to that reason. So just keep that in mind. If you go ahead and close the laptops here and kind of do like a side-by-side, you can see right here, there are, very few differences right by, the thickness as well. You can tell from the thickness that the MacBook Pro is thicker. Now, if you go right here to the side, they both have the headphone jack for both of them. No problem there. If you go to the back, same type of deal. And then the USB-Cs on both sides, they both have two on each of them. So you're not really getting too much of a difference in terms of that. And if you go right here to the back of it, put them right side by side, that basically look the same. So Again, it really comes down to preference, but um, in my personal opinion, I think the MacBook Air does everything sufficient enough. And I would highly, highly recommend. Both these laptops have 8 gigs of memory, but I highly recommend pumping it up to 16 gigabytes. There's only two versions you get, is 8 or 16 to choose from. As of this recording of September 2021. Now, they may do something different next year or whatnot, but what I foresee is going to be the same in terms of 8 gig and 16 gig for even next year. So I would bump it up to 16. I do a variety of different applications like Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, Microsoft Word, and I have a ton of tabs open for Google Chrome that takes up a ton of memory. So my recommendation is get the 16 gig. It's going to be future proof and you won't have issues with that. Again, you won't able to replace the memory or hard drive once you purchase this. So this is not a thing where you're buying it and you can change it out down the road. No, you can't do this. They're all soldered in with the new MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs. Unfortunately, the old MacBook Pros and such, you were able to actually open it up and change it out yourself, which is a really big plus. But now, the last couple of years, everything is soldered in. So just go ahead and pay the 16 gig for the memory. The hard drive, I have a 256 hard drive on both of these. I don't recommend bumping it up. It's not worth it in my opinion. I would just recommend getting a external SSD and kind of saving your data on there. Again, this has a USB-C, so the speeds are very, very fast in terms of read and write. So you won't have a problem with that. Let me see what else I can be able to talk about this. This does have, it used to be a butterfly keyboard. Now they went to a scissor keyboard. And keep in mind, previous MacBooks back in the day used to have that scissor keyboard. And they went to the new butterfly one, and then the butterfly one was having a variety of different issues. I'm glad to say that these new MacBook Pros went back to the older one, the ones that worked really well, which are the scissor ones. So there's no problem. But I've had an issue with this MacBook Pro already with the scissor keyboard where I had to send it in and they replaced the keyboard for me. So luckily I had it under warranty and they saved it. In terms of the webcam is the same for both these models. The specs are basically the same. Again, you're not really getting too much of a difference other than the touch bar, other than a little bit better speed for the MacBook Pro and capability. And the speakers, by the way, in terms of playing music, the speakers are louder on the MacBook Pro as opposed to the MacBook Air. Not by much, but is louder and it's a little bit more clear. And I don't know why or how they do that, but it might be due to the isolations here in the thickness, as opposed to the MacBook Air. You've got basically no isolation or thickness or whatnot. So most likely the bass coming out of the MacBook Pro is better due to that. So again, which one would I choose? If I would go back in time, I purchased MacBook Pro first and I purchased this one second. If I would go back in time, I would get the MacBook Air, but I have both of them, so it really doesn't matter. I would get the MacBook Air over the MacBook Pro, and I would bump up the specs to 16 gig and call it a day. I would do that primarily due to the reason of the MacBook Air being lighter weight. I do travel quite a bit, and I do bring my laptop everywhere I go. So this in general, the MacBook Air, I would like to have with me when traveling and going abroad or whatnot. So that's my 2 cents, take it or not. If this video was helpful, again, please press the like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. It's going to help out the channel. And also subscribe. And I want to know as well in the comment section down below, if you have a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro, tell me your thoughts on it. How has it been for you? Are you liking it so far? Are you enjoying it? Post it down in the comment section down below. Want to hear your thoughts. And one more thing with the M1 chip that not a lot of people say or talk about is a lot of apps aren't. I mean, M1 chip came out a year and a half, 2 years ago. Okay, so it's been some time now out, but some apps really don't work with the M1 chip just yet. You have to have Rosetta to use them. One way I'm talking about is virtualizing Windows. Not a lot of apps use the M1 chip is, so they use the Intel chips, which they used to use before for the Macs. So there's still being processed through. So a lot of different apps, not many of them, but some of them, including virtualization of Windows or whatnot, is not formatted to run on M1 chips. So you got to use Rosetta and whatnot, even Windows. So that's my only gripe or downside, but there's a lot of advantages to this M1 chip in comparison wise. So, and I think that's gonna, with those applications, I think they're already currently working on them, they're fixing them up. So I think over time they are gonna be corrected, so applications will work on the M1 chip, whatever the ones that do not. And I think that's coming up pretty soon here. But the advantages of the M1 chip are tremendous. The speeds you get over the Intel chip that it was in these laptops before, and even the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the i9 processor, Intel i9 processor, these M1 chips really blow it out of the water. So is this amazing in terms of what Apple has been able to successfully do. And right now there's a M1X chip that's coming out for the MacBook Pro 14-inch and 16-inch models. So we're going to see that coming out. But the battery life is amazing on these laptops. I'm getting more battery life out of the MacBook Pro, and rightfully so, because the battery is larger in the MacBook Pro as opposed to the MacBook Air. So I'm getting about 1 or 2 hours more of the MacBook Pro as opposed to the MacBook Air. So that's one thing that I think the Pro excels in, is getting that hour and a half, 2 hours more in battery life as opposed to the Air. But the battery life, I'm looking about 10 to 12 hours, with normal use of the MacBook Pro. With MacBook Air, I'm looking at about 9 hours, maybe 10 if, depending on what I'm doing. But if I'm continuously working, using it, playing video, playing music, YouTube, doing work in the background, the laptop battery life is just absolutely amazing. So I'm really glad about that. I'm really happy about that. That was one factor that I was looking for in a laptop, is the battery life. And coming from a Windows Surface Book Pro and Windows Surface Book and HP laptop, Dell laptop, you name it, none of them come close to what the MacBook Pro and MacBook Air has been able to succeed and do with their internal Apple M1 chips. So they've done a phenomenal job. I think it's going to take a long time for Intel to catch up with that. Again, it's been a year and a half, 2 years since Apple's come out with their own chip, and Intel has not, come out with a competition in terms of that. So I think they're still in the development stage and ramping that up. But Apple has done a phenomenal job in terms of the speed, the battery life, and the cooling. You can use these laptops pretty tough and pretty strongly, and it won't heat up. That's the thing that I've noticed with these laptops. When I use a Windows or Intel-based chip laptop, it always heats up. There's always the fan running. With these laptops, you don't have that issue. So one thing I would like Apple to do, though, for maybe the next generation or future generation, where Dell and a variety of other laptop manufacturers have done, is the bezel. If they could reduce this blackness, which is this dead space on the top here, and close that up a little more, I think that would be great. I think that would provide a lot more screen real estate to the laptop, and it would help out tremendously. I think if Apple could do that, that would be fantastic. But other than that, another thing that's a difference is the brightness. With the MacBook Pro, I don't know if you can tell from this video, it is brighter than the MacBook Air. And it's not by much, but it is brighter. So if you're looking for something with a lot brighter screen, the MacBook Pro does deliver in terms of that. So I think I can see it in the video here, but if not, let me know in the comment section below if you're able to see this difference between the two. Other than that, that's basically a full review of these two laptops. They are amazing laptops. You can't go wrong with either one of them, depending on what your application is and what you want to do. If you're a traveler and you're looking to get your laptop and carry it all the time, the MacBook Air I would go with. If you're a professional where you're editing and you're doing a variety of different things and weight doesn't really matter, go with the MacBook Pro. You are going to get the higher brightness. You are going to get the higher performance. You are going to get the better battery life. So another factor, and I forgot to mention this, is on a firm surface, straight surface, I've noticed with the MacBook Air, it does have some wiggle on a surface. It's not flat for some odd reason. I don't know why, and it might be just due to the little black things here on the bottom. But it's kind of interesting in terms of that. And when I'm using this, it kind of digs in a little more than the MacBook Pro. I don't know why the edges dig into my wrist or arm, but if you guys are experiencing that, let me know. Maybe it's just my hand or my arm, but let me know in the comment section down below. And again, check you guys next video. If you have any questions on either one of these laptops, post them down below. Happy to answer them, and check you guys out on the next video. Thanks.